You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates. You're watching the Inside Slant on The Sports Objective. Over the next hour, the guys will be joined by play-by-play voices, beat writers, and other analysts from around the nation as they preview this weekend's college football action. Let's hear from you throughout the show via Facebook Live, on our YouTube channel, or on Twitter at The Sports OBJ. Now, here are the guys.
Welcome into the Inside Slant right here on the Sports Objective. With us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, all the way in the big city of LaGrange is Kyle Barber. What's up, dude?
Hey, man, the real LA, LaGrange, right here, representing. What's going on, fellas?
Yeah, we're getting ready to talk to a gentleman that's from actually not going to be in LA, but going to Stanford. And Bubba Rosenbaum joins us now. Bubba, what's up, dude?
I just got home from Riley's football practice, Dave, and looking forward to talking some college football. Have a lot of guests lined up for our viewers and listeners over the next hour plus, and not as many interesting games this week, but we picked out the ones that we were really intrigued by, and obviously Lincoln Riley is someone that we really think a lot of, and he did so much for East Carolina from 2010 to 2014, and in week one, as we'll talk about here in just a moment, the Trojans put up 66 against Rice.
And as you mentioned, Lincoln Riley, Bubba, you also mentioned your son Riley and shotgun. You'll be surprised to know that Bubba named his son Riley after Lincoln Riley.
Most people think that, but and I guess understandably so, given how I love the Pirates. But it was actually just liking the name, and my last name's Rosenbaum, so we just like the double R effect, if you will.
As he says that with another child on the way named Lincoln, right? Is that the case, Bubba?
Yeah. Yeah.
He has a son named Lincoln
and a daughter named Ruffin.
Anyway, at least it's not Scotty. So
no.
Kyle, please don't name your son Scotty. But anyway, shotgun.
No problem.
Good game coming up. Take on how's everything going? Hey, Lincoln Riley moved to the Big Ten. How is that going for USC fans? Are there some people that are? We know about the money differential, but as far as the tradition, pride of being in the Pac-12, does that matter to any fans?
Yeah, I mean, it matters. You're losing some of those rivalries potentially. With Stanford, with Cal, just being in California. There's been a budding rivalry with Oregon. Or USC and Oregon fans just don't like each other, really, to be honest. And then a little bit with Utah as well, being in the Pac-12 South, and basically that game every season has been a big determining factor on who has won the Pac-12 South. Now there's no more divisions in the Pac-12 for this season and next season, where USC and UCLA before they head out to the Big Ten. So yeah, there is a little bit of you're long for those matchups, but USC is still going to have their rivalry with UCLA, and as of now, the plan is to still continue their rivalry with Notre Dame, and those two things are the real rivalries for them. Even though Stanford is quote unquote considered a rival and it's their oldest rival, it's just not at the same level as UCLA or Notre Dame. And the potential of Notre Dame and maybe even Stanford joining the Big Ten later, makes USC fans, not as concerned about that as well. I think eventually, whether it be 2024, maybe not, but maybe by 2026 or 2028, I think you're going to see a West Coast pod being a part of the Big Ten, and just to ease that travel burden, because there's just it's going to be so difficult for these teams. Like, for example, UCLA softball, because USC doesn't have a softball team, their closest road conference series is 1,500 miles away. So if you're doing that, multiple times every year, it's just going to wear down some of those programs. So I think that they will eventually get to where there's 5 or 6 teams on the West Coast that are part of the Big Ten, which will then just kind of decrease some of that travel as well. But USC fans, I think the biggest thing for them with Lincoln Riley, with the move to the Big Ten, with everything else, is just they're excited. And it's the first time in a long time that they've been excited and there's this much enthusiasm. You could feel it around the stadium on Saturday, the tailgating, everything. Just people are excited rather than going, oh no, how are we going to mess this up? Oh no, because USC actually, they won 66-14. They blew out an opponent. And that's the first time they've done that in a long time, it feels like. Even against group of 5 opponents, USC's kind of had a history the last 4, 5, 6 years of their season opening game being pretty close going into the fourth quarter and then kind of separating. There was last year it was 13-7 against San Jose State going into the fourth quarter. Western Michigan, I think it was 19-14, or maybe that was UNLV. All these games were pretty close. So to see a blowout, fans are like, oh my goodness, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what it's like again, and kind of gives them these thoughts of what it was like, when Pete Carroll was running things at USC.
You mentioned the potential West Coast pod there for the Big Ten, and makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of money in the Big Ten. The college football playoff expansion that's most likely going to go into effect in 24, not 26, with the 6 highest rated conference champions getting an automatic bid, which, by the way, is great for the group of 5. I don't think that's been talked about enough. It's only 5 Power 5 conferences. So that means one group of 5 conference gets a champion in the playoff every year. But my point is, obviously there's a money difference for Oregon, Utah. I know they're being talked to about the Big 12 more so than the Big 10. But, I kind of wonder if I'm Oregon or, we'll use Oregon for the example, or Utah, particularly maybe Utah with looking at going to the Big 12. If you stay in the Pac-12 with the new playoff format, with the 6 champions getting automatic bids, Oregon or Utah is going to win the Pac-12 every damn year now. You can make playoffs every year. So do you think any of that's going to be considered before these teams jump to the Big Ten? Because that Big Ten is going to be tough to win. Now, granted, there's going to be 6 at-large spots, and the Big Ten is likely to get probably 2 of them each year. Do you think that'll be considered at all before any other schools move on from the Pac-12?
I mean, I think you're going to look at all those type of things and look at all the scenarios. You're going to look at how it affects the men's basketball, because obviously the Pac-12 has a pretty good tradition there. But in the end, it comes down to, you're getting $30 million from the Pac-12? That's what's been discussed, $30 to $35 million, versus $100 million potentially in the Big Ten. It's not like it's $10 million difference every year. This is right. $60 million difference potentially. I mean, that's just something that, that makes such a big difference, where that covers some of that travel that I talked about. That covers, Stanford has, I think, 27 sports, 24 sports. They have, one of the largest athletic departments in the nation. To be able to support that, you need an influx of cash. Now, Stanford has a huge endowment and stuff, but they don't necessarily use it for their academics. So you're looking at some of these programs, and then it becomes, okay, you get into the playoff, and hey, that's going to provide a little bit more money. But are you going to be more competitive if you're beating up on a conference of nobodies? And that could be the case of the conference. Now, maybe it gets stronger. It all depends on, one, is what you can do to entice recruits to stay, and then entice some big boys to come across the country, because the West Coast, that's been one of the big issues. You look at all the guys that are in the conversation. You're looking at the Heisman Trophy. Your Heisman Trophy finalist was a USC commit that decommitted from Southern California. Your 2 top contenders right now, Bryce Young, who won it last year, and CJ Stroud, both from Southern California. You look at JT Daniels, he was at Georgia. You went into last year with the 3 top potential Heisman contenders, all being from Southern California. And it's not just those positions. You look at Ohio State, and there's multiple guys from Southern California, whether it be offensive lineman, whether it be Court Williams, one of their captains as a safety. You're losing pieces. Ohio State also has a couple receivers from the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of players from the West have left. And part of that is that USC hasn't been as good. When your bell cow program in your conference isn't as good as it should be, then that ends up kind of opening the door. We saw this similarly in the early aughts, the late 90s, where, Florida State came in and got some guys. Some teams from across the country would come in and cherry pick, and you see Clemson's quarterbacks from Southern California. Just a number of players have done that. So that would be the first thing, is can you keep players in the West? And that 60 million a year that goes to facilities, but that's also going to go to different NIL type stuff. And, can you create the right atmosphere for players to be able to make money in that NIL specter? Are you helping them out in different ways, whether it's just straight paying them, if that becomes the thing, or if it's, are you putting all the resources in to help negotiate those contracts or help them, find someone that's going to provide NIL? Those are the type of things where the Pac-12 is falling behind right now. And, because others, Rutgers is making more money than USC every year. Purdue is making more money than Oregon every year. Like that's just, it's inexcusable when you look at it from an athletic department. If you want to keep up, Oregon is getting an influx of cash from Phil Knight, but when you're not getting the funding from multiple sources, it makes it that much more difficult. So I think the money is a big part of what the Pac-12 needs to do to be able to stay on the same level, or else I think they fall behind.
Yeah, I don't think the Pac-12 losing USC and UCLA, I don't see their TV revenue going up any. So I don't really know what they can do with that. I mean, not much. But I will say this, and we'll move on next week. Preview the USC Stanford game. I do wonder how much of obviously the money, you can't turn that money down. I get them leaving and going to the Big Ten, although I do think college football is about tradition and rivalry. And I think as we get more and more away from it, I think TV ratings are going to start going down, but we'll see if I'm right. The thing that I think is even more strange to me, and I think you'll agree, and you mentioned your athletic director, why in the hell was USC Coach Helton? He's an all right coach. He's at Georgia Southern now, and that's where he belongs. Why in the hell was he at USC for so long? Why did it take this long for USC to go out and get a big name coach?
Well, it starts with, it's not just with Clay Helton. It starts with the hire after Pete Carroll decided to leave for the Seahawks. You bring in Lane Kiffin, and nothing against Lane Kiffin. I think he's a really good coach. I don't think he was ready at that time. I think, if his career trajectory went a different way, and now, being at Ole Miss and having success there, USC might have looked at him in this coaching search and said, hey, maybe we bring him back. But it was too early for him there. Steve Sarkisian obviously had his issues off the field. And then they go to Clay Helton because it's a safe hire. We've had too much stuff going on around the program outside. Clay Helton's a guy that's going to calm everything down. It's not going to give us any trouble off the field. So that made sense for them. Hey, that's fine for an interim. But then they ran into trouble. They had some success early, and Lynn Swann just completely against, not being bid against by anyone else. No one's, talking about Clay Helton, being their next head coach. He's not in talks with anyone, and just ups and gives him an extension. Jimmy Sexton fleeced him on a fully guaranteed extension, and USC was in trouble. And they had some other things going on around the school with some different scandals and, some big lawsuits that they had to pay out. And because of that, there wasn't necessarily the money there, and there wasn't the desire from the administrative side outside of athletics to really press the issue of trying to get a big name head coach at that time, with everything else that was going on, that they were trying to settle down and kind of, get the reputation of the school back on track the way it should be. So I think there was a lot of factors that played into it, but the biggest thing was it was just a lazy hire. And it was just the fact that you had 3 consecutive athletic directors, and now Mike Garrett lucked into Pete Carroll and did really well there, but he made some other mistakes there. But you had 3 consecutive athletic directors that were known for what they did on the football field at USC, not for what they did as an athletic director anywhere else. And that's the biggest difference. Mike Bohn has come in. He's got credentials as an actual athletic director rather than he was a TV personality like Pat Hayden or Lynn Swann, or he had a failed run for a government office like Lynn Swann. He was actually an athletic director and did some positive things for the Cincinnati program. And now he's come in, and his staff at USC, and Brendan Sosna, who was here and just got hired away by the Detroit Lions, who was his right-hand man, did some really nice things, building up different pieces around the football program in some other sports as well. And then they go and make the big hire of Lincoln Riley that kind of shocks the college football world, and it's definitely changed the landscape. I think with that move, combined with the fact that behind the scenes they had these discussions going on with the Big Ten, and they were able to make that move kind of in the middle of the night as well, with no one kind of realizing what was happening. So I think those two moves from this athletic department have really changed the landscape of college football for the next at least half decade.
Hey, Shotgun, if you take a look at this game, we talked about the 66-14 result in week one, a game that was, I think, 59-7 after 3 quarters. And Caleb Williams, obviously that got a lot of headlines, him going to USC from Oklahoma, and that was not surprising. He was nearly perfect in week one, threw for a touch under 250 yards, 19 out of 22. And then one of the things I've always loved about Lincoln Riley, he's continued to evolve on that offense. And, you ran for over 200 yards and you had nobody carry it more than 6 times.
Yeah, I mean, when the difference between Lincoln Riley's air raid and you guys obviously know is that he likes to run the ball. Whereas Mike Leach doesn't want to do that ever. He wants to get touches to his running backs, but that's by throwing it to him in the flats and whatnot. And the running backs also had a couple catches in this game. I thought it was a very well-rounded, and you got a bunch of different guys opportunity. I think there were 12 different guys that caught passes. You had 5 offense touchdowns. You also had 3 defense touchdowns. So, 3 pick sixes that were returned for touchdowns. But you saw, just the variety of his offense attack. I mean, there was one play early, and USC fans are used to, Graham Harrell famously installed his offense in 3 practices. Their former offense coordinator, because that's how simple it was. It was just repetition. We're going to run the same plays. We're going to run them so well that, defenses are going to be able to stop us. That's not the case with Lincoln Riley. He's going to design stuff where guys are wide open rather than having to be perfect on, your routes and everything else. And you saw the first third down that USC had, just a very nice route where you had Mario Williams and Jordan Addison running short routes, and you forced the issue with the linebackers. Hey, do you stop them at the sticks? Or do you kind of leave open a gap between those linebackers and safeties, which is what they did. And Taj Washington was wide open over the middle, picks up like 40 yards and kind of sets up that first touchdown. So, you're just seeing some of those wide open receivers was harmony to USC fans, ears and eyes being able to see that after so long, is just seeing guys, a lot of jump balls and seeing, Drake London and Michael Pittman Jr. and guys like that going up and just beating other players, which USC's, players can still do. But now you're making it a little bit easier on them, and you're seeing the dynamic ability. And you saw the freshman Raleek Brown, with a couple of really nice plays, including his first career touchdown and throwing the Heisman pose at the end of it, which was one of the highlights that everyone seemed to really enjoy from the USC side.
As you take a look at this matchup with Stanford, tell us, obviously, Stanford in recent years, they struggled a bit after having a lot of success under Coach Shaw. So, tell us how this explosive USC offense matches up with that Stanford defense.
Yeah, I mean, Stanford has been was known for their brutal intellectual brutality is how they phrased it previously, and that was with Christian McCaffrey. They're going to put 3 tight ends on the field. They're going to run it over you, and then when they do split out, they're going to throw the jump balls on the outside to these big receivers, and that's something they're still going to do. But the problem is their offensive line just hasn't been as good as it has in the past, and that's made it that much more difficult because they can't control the game as much as they had in the past, whether it be with Jim Harbaugh when he had Toby Gerhart or with David Shaw and his Christian McCaffrey, Bryce Love teams. So that's put that much more emphasis on the defense, and their defense has never been just completely lights out. They haven't necessarily had a ton of big-time NFL playmakers on that defense, but they've been really solid. And they haven't had to do too much because they're only playing 50 or 60 plays a game instead of 80 because of the pace of the game is really slowed down when Stanford can control the clock, control the ball. And so I think it just, with less plays, I think it enabled their defense to hide a little bit more, where now they've been exploited a little bit. And they still have come up with some interesting wins, some intriguing wins. I mean, last year they dominate USC. They beat Oregon, I think it was last year as well, and go 3-9. Like, it doesn't make any sense, the games that they do win. So they still have some talent there, but I think they're one of the teams that's really suffered from the changes in college football, the transfer portal, because at Stanford, you're getting guys that are transferring out, even if they have eligibility remaining once they graduate, because they can't get into a grad program at Stanford. They don't get a bunch of grad transfers coming in. They've had like one the last like 4 or 5 years. It just doesn't happen. I know the baseball team, I know their coaches really well. They've had one in their 5 years that they've been on campus. They have one grad transfer come in. And, they've lost some other pieces like Jacob Palish to Texas A&M was a big part for Texas A&M's College World Series team. So, it's I don't think that's helped them with the NIL, with the transfer portal changes, but also the NIL. Stanford is known for, Silicon Valley and stuff, but how many of those people and those big time donors to the university are really that interested in college football? And you see that with their attendance, even when they're going pretty well, they've never had really good attendance. They got a pretty small stadium and they don't really pack it. So I just don't know if there's a ton of interest there that at the same level that to keep up with a bunch of other places. So I feel like that's part of the reason why you've seen them fall a little bit behind the last couple of years. But the big thing to me is that offensive line. When the offensive line doesn't carry them, they haven't been really good. They've got a really good quarterback this year in Tanner McKee, but can they protect him? Last year, they gave up 31 sacks, and I believe they were like in the bottom 10, I believe it was, in rush yards per game. So you're not going to do too much on offense when that's the case.
Yeah, no doubt. Stanford struggled here recently on offense, and seems to. I mean, I can't remember the last time. Even on some of their good seasons when they were winning, they were struggling on offense. So. Do you expect them to be better on offense this year versus last?
Well, I mean, if you look at just their statistics, then they have struggled in the past. But the way they control the clock, they control the game, and they can just grind you down when they were going good. This is when they're going good. The question is, can they get back to that? I remember, I think it was 2015 or 2016, they had like 3 of the top 10 offensive linemen recruits in the country. And they haven't had that the last couple of years. So that's been the big issue, is just getting those talented offensive linemen, guys that are potential first, second round guys. They haven't gotten them in the recruiting classes the last few years. And that's been a big issue for them. That's the same thing with USC the last few. USC hasn't got their top offensive tackle target in, I think, 5 years now. And that's been one of the struggles for them, is offensive tackle play over the last couple of years. So I think that's been a big issue for them. If their offensive line gets back, then they have a great history in the last 20 years of tight end play. They've had a number of guys in the NFL from their tight end play. They got a good one this year in Ben Urasek, but they always have these big wide receivers on the outside. And the first one that comes to mind is probably I just blanked on his name, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who played for the Eagles. Was a first or second round pick there because he could go up and jump up over guys and go make a play with a big body. And they just would do this over and over and over. You knew it was coming. They get in the red zone. You're like, all right, here comes the jump ball. And you just couldn't stop it. And they've gotten some pieces this year. And with a quarterback like Tanner McKee, who is going to be a potential first-round pick, but is going to be a first 2 days, I would say, draft pick when he decides to come out. He can put the ball where it needs to be. So now it's up to those big guys to go make plays. John Humphreys is one of my favorite high school kids that I've ever seen play. He's a big target for him on the outside. And that'll be one of the intriguing matchups actually this weekend with USC. They destroyed USC last season on jump balls on the outside, on fade routes and whatnot. USC just couldn't stop it. They would get one-on-one matchups, and they would just destroy USC on those. And that's how they blew out USC and ended up getting Clay Helton fired after that game. So will USC – it's going to be a completely different secondary. USC has 5 new starters. Only one of those guys has really played against Stanford in the past, and that was Mekhi Blackman when he was at Colorado. And they're a little bit smaller cornerbacks than they were in the past for USC. So how do they match up? That'll be a big matchup for USC to try to win this game.
What are the expectations for USC this year as you look beyond the Stanford game? Obviously, Utah's the favorite to win the Pac-12. They did lose in week 1 in a close fight down in Gainesville in Florida. I don't think that's a bad look for Utah. Florida's probably going to end up being a pretty good team. But what is USC expectations? Do you guys think you can contend for the Pac-12 title in year 1 under Lincoln Riley, or is it just get back to like 8 wins, respectability in a bowl game?
I mean, I think we'll learn a lot this week. Didn't learn too much against Rice, but you start finding some stuff out when you go to conference play. But I just think with they don't have quite the depth that you need from a college football playoff team, but they have enough talent to be a Pac-12 championship team. Now, can they avoid the injury bug? I mean, when you bring in guys like Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison and Mario Williams and Jerry Rice's son, Brendan, And that's your quarterback and three of your wideouts right there. You bring in Travis Dye and Austin Jones, who were starters at different Pac-12 programs. Then you bring in a freshman All-American on the defensive side and Eric Gentry. He's moved to middle linebacker. You got a 6'6" middle linebacker who's making plays all over the place. Shane Lee comes in from Alabama. So they brought in all these transfers that have really produced in the first week, but also just added an influx of talent, because USC's talent level just was not where it needed to be last season. And I think that that's a big step forward. But now the question is, all right, if you have a couple injuries, what happens? Because they're just not as deep at some of those positions where you need to be. So I think that's the one thing that's concerned. But I think USC fans are looking at it now and like 9 wins would feel like, okay, we got 9 wins. Whereas 10 wins is kind of maybe even the expectation is 10 wins now. And anything above that, you're like, you feel excited about. But there's just so much excitement and anticipation now because of everything that happened during the offseason, all the positive moves for the USC football program. And then you go out and produce a great show in the first game. And now fans are really getting those expectations, are really rolling on a high right now.
No doubt, Shotgun. It's going to be a great game. We'll see how it turns out. And before we let you go, how can people follow your work and find out more about you on social media? Yeah,
so you can find my USC stuff at uscfootball.com, doing a little bit of everything there, photos, video, breakdowns, all that type of stuff. You guys want to follow me on Twitter at ShotgunSPR for football stuff, and then also on Instagram at ShotgunSpratling. You get to catch some of the photos there. I had a great photo from this week. One of my favorite ones I've had in a while is Raylan Goforth got an interception, a pick six, return for a touchdown. He's celebrating, and his family is all right behind him. They were all in the front couple rows, so that was a really special moment for him, and to be able to capture that one was really cool. So check out those as well.
Quick question before you go, Shotgun. Just wondering as I'm sitting here, how does the guy from Southern California get the name Shotgun?
I'm actually from Georgia originally, so I got it in T-ball, and I've had it ever since.
Okay, that makes sense.
There you go. And one final question: do you own a shotgun?
I do not. My dad has a couple, but I do not have any with me at all.
All right, there you go. All right, Shotgun. Thank you so much. Have a good one, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, appreciate you. Good night.
Dave, do you own a shotgun?
I don't. I probably should, because my daughter is very beautiful, and I probably need to.
You should have one for home protection because you got a daughter and a 10 son there.
Exactly.
We'll talk about that off the air.
Exactly. Bubba, very excited to have one of our favorite guests. He's back with us again, and I know with the Cougs and their game coming up.
Yeah, the Cougs won a thriller last week at the Alamo Dome, and I'm very excited to have this guy back to talk about that and what's on the docket this week with the Texas Tech Red Raiders and Joey McGuire's club. Right now, welcome back in the color analyst for the Houston Cougars, Ted Pardee. Ted, we appreciate your time this evening.
Bubba, great to be here. Dave, Kyle, good to see you guys, man.
Hey, Ted, by the way, ask who I picked you guys to win last week on that.
My man, I knew you would, Dave.
I wonder who Kyle picked.
I was actually correct. We're picking against the spread, Dave, and I took
spread.
I took UTSA, and UTSA covered the spread.
I thought we picked it straight up.
Well, congratulations, Dave. You were right that they won a game they were favored to win in triple overtime by 2 points.
It was crazy.
UTSA is no slouch.
Oh, let me tell you what. Listen, I don't want any of that UTSA work anymore. Good on him, and glad we don't have to see him again. I mean, maybe next year, maybe not. I don't know. A couple of years away, but we knew last year that was going to be a tough game, you guys. If you know anything about that coaching staff and what they've done for UTSA, they've done an amazing job. They got a great team, and Houston was, look what Dana said. Dana was like, listen, we're lucky to get out of here alive. We're happy to get out of here.
No, UTSA is a good program, and they're coming into the American next year. They're the only school I'm excited about coming into the American, to be quite honest with you.
What about Charlotte?
Oh, I'm just so fired up about Charlotte. I'm so fired up I could puke.
Too close.
They got 15,000 in their football stadium. They lost to William and Mary. I mean, come on. But no, UTSA is a quality program, and I like that they invested in that coach. He's very well paid. I don't know if people realize what they're paying him, much more than what people would think. And I think San Antonio has really embraced UTSA almost like an expansion NFL team.
They really have, and if you know the Alamo Dome, it's a quasi NFL style facility. It's been around for a long time, but it's beautiful. They've taken great care of it. It's packed. It's absolutely packed. The parking lot packed, absolutely packed. Like unbelievable. I can't even describe it. It was like going to a home Houston game. To be totally honest with you, it was amazing. And Jeff Traylor and the coaches over there, what they've done is they've tapped into the high school sort of coaches network, and a lot of the coaches on that staff are former high school coaches, and it's kind of like what Texas Tech has done. Quite frankly, they've done the exact same thing, and it's a common script because in the state of Texas, the high school coaches make a lot of money. They are paid extremely well. You can make well into the six figures as a Texas high school coach in the public schools. They have a lot of control over where their student athletes go. And so they've done a great job of embracing that. Dana's done a fantastic job. I got to give Dana Holgerson credit. He's done a great job of embracing it. If you're a coach in the state of Texas, you can't ignore the high school coaches. They control the game.
No doubt. Ted, I wanted to ask you before we break down Houston at Texas Tech. You're one of the smart football minds, and I wanted to get your thoughts on we're hearing 4 potential teams from the Pac-12 coming to the Big 12. How do you feel about that, being a future member of the Big 12?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I'm in the world that we live in today. You know what? You got to go for talent. You got to get good schools. You got to survive. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. It's the honest God truth. The Pac-12 is in trouble. Like, quite frankly, between the friends here, right? I mean, I've got friends out there in the West Coast. I was born in Southern California. I've got a lot of friends that are out there tied into a lot of the athletic departments. Schools like Cal, they don't have much support from the administration. Totally honest with you. And so imagine being a coach out there and trying to do your job, trying to recruit people, trying to get kids from the South to come play up there, from the Southern California to come play up there. It's tough. So, there's going to be some haves and there's going to be some have-nots. It's a shame. It's the truth is it's bad for football in general, in my opinion, guys. It's not good for football, but this is the world that we live in. It's the deck that we got to play from the deck that we've been dealt from. And, I've lived it for the past 30 years at the University of Houston. We were in the Southwest Conference. Okay. We were there. We were winning. We were right there, number 1 and number 2. We had 4 conference championships in the decade of the 80s, and I lived it. I lived being kept out, and now we're not even in yet, but we have the promise of being in next year. So until we're in, we're not in. It's just tough, man, and the money is unbelievable. Once you cross the chasm, it's the difference between double-digit millions, significant double-digit millions versus single-digit millions for universities. So it's tough, but you know what? That's the nature of the game.
Ted, I'll ask you something. I had a shotgun, and I think it's a little different answer to me when you look at the Big 12 versus the Big 10. The Pac-12 is still out there. The conference playoff expansion, which is likely going to go into effect in 24, which I think is bigger for the group of 5 than anybody, because there's only 5 Power 5 conferences, and that means one group of 5 teams is going to make playoffs each year.
Absolutely.
So, but what I'm thinking, I don't know what kind of TV revenue the new Big 12 TV contract is looking at. They're thinking $30 million per school for the Pac-12. I don't know how much bigger the Big 12 TV contract is going to be. But if I'm Oregon or Utah, and I know Oregon's really not coming up for Big 12 expansion, so we'll say Utah. If I'm Utah and I'm looking at the Big 12 and then I'm looking at the Pac-12, I'm confident I can win that Pac-12 every year if I'm Utah going forward. And so you're in the playoffs. You're in the playoffs every single year. So if you go to the Big 12, it's a little bit tougher path. Still, Utah can win the Big 12, but I just wonder if the TV revenue is going to be great enough from the Big 12, from the Pac-12, with the new playoff expansion for teams to move from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. What are the numbers you're hearing when the TV contracts get renegotiated for the Big 12? What's the speculation?
I mean, it's all hearsay, Kyle. It's 30 to 50. People are saying it's going to be more than 50 in the Big 12 per team, and I mean, I can't believe any of it, to be honest with you. And I'm great friends with our athletic director, Chris Pesman. He and I played football together. We were on the same team for 3 years at Houston. He's one of my closest friends. I would never, I don't even bug him with it anymore, to be honest with you, because he gets hit up every day about it. Like, what's the revenue going to be? What's the revenue going to be?
Yeah.
And the reality is, here's the way I look at it, Kyle. I'm with you on what you just said. What you just said is perfect. It makes perfect sense. If that's the case, then why did Texas and Oklahoma leave the Big 12 to go to the SEC? Why would they do that?
More
because
revenue.
Let's be totally
more
honest. They are going to be middle of the road. Both of those schools, best case, middle of the road for 10 years.
They don't believe that.
Like, just be totally straightforward. They are not going to do anything for 10 years. 10
they don't
years.
But you can't tell Texas and Oklahoma fans that. They don't have that mindset. And also,
I'm with you, buddy. Look, I mean, I live in Texas. I have cousins that were all Americans at Texas. I mean, I know this. Like, when you live in this state, we know we all had cousins and brothers, and we know each other, right? Like, we know each other worse than each other's, step families. Like, we're the worst state on the planet, right? But I'm just saying, man, like, they're not going to do anything. They're not. It's not going to happen.
I agree with you. I just think.
And so that's what you got to look at is you got to go for the money today.
Don't worry about tomorrow's
I
don't know how much greater I just don't know how much greater the Big 12 money is going to be than the Pac-12 money. The Big 10 and the SEC are in a whole nother stratosphere than everybody else. I just don't. I look at the Big 12 and I look at the Pac-12 and I look at if everything stays the same. If the Big 12 doesn't add anybody else, if the Pac-12 doesn't add anybody else, I'll look at it and I flip a coin. I think the TV money is going to be about the same. The only thing is that maybe the benefit to the Big 12, if I'm not mistaken, you should know this better than me. Their TV contract comes up before the Pac-12, and ESPN needs content with losing the Big 10. That may play to the Big 12's advantage.
Well, not just that, but it's not the Pac-12 anymore. It's back to the Pac-10.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm taking away USC.
So now what are they going to go get? San Diego State? Who are they going to go take to get back to 12? Right? Nobody cares about a 10-team conference anymore. Nobody cares about that anymore.
I would if I was the Pac-12, I would take San Diego State and SMU.
No doubt. I would too. SMU's not going to bring you any fans, but they got money. They've got money, so they can help you. And media market. They get the media market, exactly. But it's tough, man. I'm just telling you, it's there. I think that the Big 12 is in a good position. I know that people know, like, you're losing Oklahoma and Texas, you're losing everything. I don't know. Let's see how Texas does against Alabama this week. That's going to tell us, it's going to be the litmus test. Yeah. I think they're going to get destroyed. It's not even going to be funny.
Mark is already
and I love to laugh at Texas, but it's not going to happen. Trust me. So it's like the only school that's respectable between the two is Oklahoma, but even they're going to struggle this year because they're rebuilding and they got a new head coach and that type of thing. I just look. My whole thing is like, look, the reality is we got to start thinking about 16-team conferences. That's where this thing's pointing. Look at the playoff thing. Yeah. They relined. It's all headed to 16-team conferences. That's where it's going. And there's the Southwest Conference. I love it. I played in it. We dominated. We were better than the SEC. We used to slap around the SEC schools all the time. And then guess what? We woke up and it was gone. It disappeared off the face of the earth. You got to be an old man like me to remember those days. But the Southwest Conference, look at their – Dave, you remember, buddy. You're not that old. But listen, I'm telling you, the Southwest Conference, we would not stand down from anybody back in those days.
In fact,
and they're gone.
Back in those days, if you wanted to watch college football, you guys, the Southwest Conference was one. Maybe USC. There's not many schools that were on regular television back in those days. Even the early days of cable, it was always Southwest Conference.
Well, the irony is that it was Southwest Conference playing against a lot like Pac-12 and Big 10. Those were the teams. Those were the schools that played against each other. So my dad, 1957, he flew out to UCLA and played in the Rose Bowl for a regular season game against UCLA as as a college student,
Wow.
So you go back to way back in history. I'm just saying, things are going to change, and old traditions, they went out the window 30 years ago. When the Southwest Conference when it got shot in the kneecaps, that was it. College football changed forever. And it can happen again. There can be another conference that will disappear.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and then we'll move on and preview the Texas Tech Houston game. I think, and I don't think it's too late for the American schools to do this. The ones that were left behind when you guys in UCF Cincinnati went to the Big 12. I think had the playoff expansion happened last summer, I think the Mountain West schools, Boise State, Colorado State, Air Force, would have joined the American because they would have seen there the ability to form the sixth best conference. Instead, we're stuck with a bunch of Conference USA castaways. I still think right now, if you're the schools, Memphis, SMU for the time being, East Carolina, etc., I think you need to be getting on the phone right now with the top schools in the Mountain West and form the best of league, the best of the rest, so you can be that sixth best conference as a 16-team league.
I'm with you, Kyle, and let me tell you, I was completely impressed with the play against the Wolfpack this week. Just a little side note to the ECU fans, 21-14 goal line stand, Julius Wood bringing the hammer. I mean, that stacks up I don't care what league you're in. That was a goal line stand that could be an SEC team against an ACC team. I don't care who it is. That was big time football. And that's what ECU can do. ECU can recruit kids like that. They can play football that get overlooked by other kids because they're from a small town in South Carolina or something. And that's what I love about schools. That's what you guys are going to see next year with UTSA when they get into the American. That's going to be a great football game when they play you guys. That's a great matchup. Two great teams. Houston still has to get past you guys this year. You guys are going to give Houston a punch in the mouth. I mean, I'm excited about what this football season holds because the conference is strong and the recruiting says it all. So schools like ECU and UTSA and there's some great schools in that conference and could a super conference fold around those along with Boise and some of those schools? Those guys in the West, don't forget, they can't fly by themselves. They don't make enough money. Remember Boise State during COVID, they furloughed their whole athletic department. Yep. Furloughed them. Don't forget that. That's different from what everybody else did. Some guys said, okay, go take 2 weeks off and then come back. We'll still pay you. But they furloughed their whole athletic department. That means they didn't pay them.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. So they don't have money like a lot of us in the South do in the Southeast. You guys could help them. And I think there's a way that there's a new conference, whether it's the American or whatever, but I think that there's another way to get there with a super conference that is just outside of the Power 5 or the Power 4, whatever it becomes.
No, I agree, particularly with the 6 highest ranked conference champions. If that continues, I think there's a necessity to form a sixth best conference. And I
no doubt
do that by merging the best from the American with the best from the Mountain West. And we'll jump on Houston and Texas Tech. But I did want to point out to you, as you mentioned East Carolina and your impression of our football team, we got you guys on Senior Day in Greenville.
I know. I don't want to hear it, but I know.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It makes it even harder.
Hey, Ted, before the game, you got to come to our tailgate.
Oh, I will. Absolutely. I'll swing by. Absolutely.
We're right near the practice field, right behind the stadium. I'm so old now. I finally have moved on up where I used to have to walk far, far away, but now I'm old enough where I can be right near the stadium.
I'll be there, brothers. I will.
Yeah, let's talk about the game. That's why we have you on. Houston at Texas Tech. Houston, obviously, we think that they have a good shot. We talked to you a couple weeks ago. We feel like they have a good shot to win the league. And we obviously want Houston to win this week, obviously to represent the American very, well. What do they have to do to win there in Lubbock?
Well, it's an old rival. It's an old in-state rival. Not a lot of love lost between these two schools. Last couple matchups. Last year we had them in Houston at Reliant Stadium. Right there where the Texans play. It was a big deal. Houston struggled and looked great. Looked great in the first quarter. Looked great going into the first half. Had no gas in the second half. And they had struggled with Tyler Shook, who was the quarterback transfer from Oregon, who had started there 2 years ago. But even this year, Tyler is, he got hurt in the first game. He wasn't like the definitive starter at Texas Tech this year. So I think Tech's trying to figure out who they are, to be totally honest with you. They're trying to really understand what they have as an offense. They've got a great coaching staff. One of my old college teammates is an assistant head coach there and running backs coach, special teams coordinator, Kenny Perry. These guys are extremely well prepared. They're great recruiters. It's a great staff. It's a great matchup for the University of Houston.
Yeah, not a lot of marquee games this week, so it's a good week for this game to happen to get a lot of eyeballs on it.
Yeah, and that's good. I think within the state of Texas, people are going to be interested. So, it's an old rivalry. If you glance at some of the trending topics on Twitter, there was one in Houston that was talking about the game, and then there was a lot of throwback pictures from some old games between the two through the years, and brings back great memories, but also really kind of rekindles that old flame that Texas Tech recruits the Houston area extremely well. They do a great job of getting big guys out of Houston. They get skill players out of Houston. There's a little overlap within the rosters. There's a running back at the University of Houston, Tajon Henry, who Houston recruited really hard out of high school. He went to Lamar High School right in town, in the city of Houston. And Tajon initially had thought he wanted to go to Houston. He decided he wanted to go to Texas Tech. Well, he went to Tech for 2 years, decided he wanted to come home. A lot of kids do that, and they want to come home and play in front of mom and dad and make it an easier way for mom and dad to see him. So Tajon's on our sideline. He had a great year last year. He got dinged up a little bit in the first quarter against UTSA, but I expect Tajon to have a huge game.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the line on this game? I should. Well, somebody just got something. What is the line on this game? I should know that, but I don't off the top of my head.
I have not checked, to be totally honest with you. I was so caught up in the line last week and the 4 points, and at the end of the game, I was like, how do they get that every time? It was, like if UTSA hadn't driven the field and kicked that extra point, it would have been one of those like, how did they figure that out? But the overtime changed everything. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what the line is, especially as we get closer to kickoff. I think it'll kind of tighten a little bit, but again, their starting quarterback Tyler Shook is not going to be starting this week. They're holding him out, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Bubba, do you have the line?
Give me one moment. I'll have it. Let's see.
So Texas Tech is holding out their starting quarterback. I would expect Houston to
I think he got dinged up a little bit. I think he got hurt.
Yeah.
Texas Tech by 3.5.
There you go.
Without their quarterback. Yeah, give me Houston and the points.
Houston.
That's one of those curveballs, and I imagine it'll, like I said, I'm sure it'll tighten up a little bit as we get closer to kickoff.
Yeah, no doubt. But without their quarterback, you guys have a good football team. I'd be even willing to take you guys straight up. For you, but if you're out there looking for gambling advice, take Houston and the points.
Yeah. To me, the thing that's so exciting for Houston is that really defense is becoming their calling card, and I think we might have talked about it this summer a little bit. But and I mentioned how last year Houston had 2 defensive lines that were young. They had basically 8 guys that they were kind of shuffling in and out. And then they had 2 guys that graduated. So now we're down to about 6 guys. But then there's couple young guys that are coming up. So we're back to 8 guys, the starting 4, and then the number 2s. You really can't tell the difference right now between the 1s and 2s on that defensive line. The exciting thing to me is that the U of H defense, it generated the most quarterback pressures in week 1 in college football. Houston had 34. They had 34 QB pressures. The really cool part about it is that in all of college football, 6 players had 8 or more pressures in week 1. In all of college football, 6 total players had 8 or more college quarterback pressures. 3 of those 6 were on the U of H defensive line. 3 of those guys on the U of H defensive line had 8 or more pressures on the quarterback. Give that a little thought. Now, the fact that we didn't have sacks is a problem. I'll just say they were all 8. All of those were pressures. They weren't sacks. But it also shows you what kind of talent that UTSA has at quarterback. Incredibly elusive quarterback. They were getting to him. They just couldn't get him down. That's what it came down to. And that's not going to change. That's not going to change. That's a calling card for the University of Houston. That front 7 at U of H is really powerful. I think they're going to give some pressure to that Texas Tech offense.
Yeah, what do you know about Texas Tech's backup quarterback? How much experience does he have? When you mentioned getting that kind of pressure on the quarterback, I immediately think you're playing your backup quarterback. That could spell turnovers.
It can. So Donovan Smith, 6'5", 230 quarterback. He's a sophomore. He's a young guy. However, it was a quarterback battle, to be honest with you, going into the season. So it wasn't, Tyler Shuck, who came from, again, started at Oregon 2 years ago, played in the bowl game, was an incredible talent, and then he transfers. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you leaving Oregon to go to Tech? This is the world that we live in with free agency in football. But Donovan Smith, he's a talented kid. He's 14 for 16, 221 yards. I mean, you can't complain that in his backup pitch and roll. To me, that's a talented quarterback. The Cougars are going to have to get after him. My hope is he's a big guy, 6'5", 230. Now, it doesn't mean he can't run, but it also means he's a big target. And I know our DNs are going to get after the ball. They're going to get after that quarterback. And, if he's not elusive in the pocket, that's going to be a problem.
You remember a quarterback at East Carolina named David Garrard? He was about that size, and he was pretty dang elusive. And even if he wasn't elusive, he'd just stand there and take the hit and get the pass off anyway.
David was one of the best. Loved watching him in the NFL, too.
Yeah.
No doubt. Ted, it's going to be great. I know it's going to be a great game this weekend. And again, November 19th, we've already circled the date when Ted's coming to town.
Woo. Now, do I need to sweater up? Tell me about the weather, guys.
It depends,
November,
man. It totally depends. It could be 75 degrees or it could be 45 degrees. November is a weird time in Eastern North Carolina. Really, pretty much from November till early January, you don't know what you're going to get. And typically, it stays cold for about 3 weeks in January, and then after that, you're back to you don't know what you're going to get. But
hey, that's life in the South, baby. That's why we love it, right?
It could be 75 or it could be 45.
Yeah, Ted, you can actually. The old joke is that if you don't like North Carolina weather, just wait like 10 minutes or more, and it changes so much. So,
sounds familiar.
How can people hear you on Saturday? I'm a broadcasting nerd, so we would love to hear your broadcast.
Yeah.
And find out
Absolutely.
more.
No, if you're bored, there's a variety of ways you can tune in with me. I'm on Twitter at @party_time. My last name, Party Time, with an underscore in between. You can also follow me on Instagram, partytime.32, my number 32. And then the Varsity Network is a great way to listen to our broadcasts. It's a free app you can download. All of the Learfield schools kind of participate in that, as you guys are probably aware of. But if you're interested, just download that Varsity app and dial in U of H football, and you'll catch our broadcast right there.
We missed the Varsity app. We're no longer, unfortunately, with Learfield. That's a whole nother show. I'll leave it at that.
My bad. Sorry about that, guys.
No. We were with you were correct. We were with Learfield until this year.
Right.
So
they're with Playfly, and I don't know. I really need to. Do they have an app? I need to figure that out.
I don't know. Not that I'm aware of.
There you go.
We'll find out. Ted, thanks so much, my friend, and look forward to seeing you.
You guys are great. Hey, and I'll definitely come to the. At least I'll come see you in the tailgate, but look forward to seeing you guys in the fall. Good luck the rest of the season. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Ted. All right, have a good one.
Guys.
Take care. Good night. Bye-bye. Great guy there. And another great guy coming up. We have Jeff Sharon, I believe, coming up now, the Louisville game on Saturday. We'll talk about that big game. As you're watching and listening to the Inside Slant, it's a weekly college football preview. We do it every Thursday night. If you're wondering, we did this in the past, but now we want to let everybody know.
Where the hell's Semenza, Dave? Where's Matt? This is right up his alley.
I know I think he had to work tonight late, and he just sent me a text that he's guest, so we won't be getting a late Matt Semenza. But now we're going to go to Jeff, and I think Bubba, we're getting ready to do that right now. Jeff's been backstage. He's I think he may have beat a record for longest time in the green room, and I'll bring him in now. Jeff, how are you, man?
What's up, fellas? Good to be with you. It's been a minute.
It has. Great to have you back here on the show, and we've actually made the Inside Slant a weekly show now. We were doing it obviously because of the crazy COVID year, if you probably remember, in 2020. But now
how could I forget?
Exactly. I want to forget it. But we actually have nightly programming now, Jeff. We've moved up to the big time, and every single day we have a show. So this is our Thursday show, and we have you on talking college football. A big game on Saturday, right?
Yeah, we got Friday night, tomorrow night, actually, 7:30
Okay.
kick. On national TV, UCF and Louisville. Big revenge game for UCF after last year's game, which ended about as disastrously as any game I can possibly remember in program history, at least since I've been following it. But first time that we're playing Louisville in Orlando, so should be a very good crowd tomorrow. We're a little worried about the weather, as we always are in Orlando, but if things work out, it should be a spectacle tomorrow.
Let me ask you a question. Have you had much chance to watch much game film from the Syracuse game? I didn't watch any of that game, but I saw the score. What in the hell happened? I don't understand how you have that quarterback and put up 7 points.
A couple things happened. I didn't get the chance to watch much of the game film, but I talked to John Powell, who works for our SB Nation sister site that covers Louisville, and also I got my master's degree from Syracuse, so I was all about seeing what happened. But even I was like, what? One of the questions I asked him for our little Q&A with our sister site is exactly that: what the hell happened last week? And a couple things. The first thing was Louisville turned the ball over and gave Syracuse short fields. Twice they did that. And then on the other side of it was Sean Tucker, who took advantage of a Louisville defense that has really 5 new guys who came in via the transfer portal and still look like they were feeling their way around. Malik Cunningham actually didn't have a bad game aside from the 2 picks he threw, but he was kind of playing with one hand tied behind his back.
Did not get any help from the running game at all?
No, not overly much, but the real problem for Louisville was their defense, because
I don't know. You only scored 7 points. I don't know how much that reflects on your defense.
The thing is with what Syracuse was able to do. Sean Tucker is the real deal, and they were able to control
ball
the clock.
Control. Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing was they Spencer Schrader, Syracuse's quarterback, threw for over 200 and ran for almost 100, and that has us down here in Orlando pretty excited, because we've got John Rice Plumlee, who threw for 300 and ran for almost 100 last week against South Carolina State in the opener. So there's. I'm kind of on the fence about this, but then again, I grew up with UCF in the early 2000s in our collective PTSD as a program, playing big games and losing them in spectacularly strange fashions, and so I think that the team that we saw last week in the Carrier Dome, and I know it's not called the Carrier Dome anymore, but I don't care, is not the same. Is not the team we're going to see tomorrow night. I think we're going to see a Louisville team that's good. Sort of the wounded dog thing kind of comes to mind with them. You got to watch out for them, because now Scott Satterfield, it feels like, is coaching for his job at this point right now.
Yeah, he is.
You read my mind. That was one of the questions I had for you. Is will the players respond? Because the guy, he's a winner, and I'm going, what? And speaking when Kyle said, "What the hell's happened to Scott Satterfield?"
Is he a winner? Appalachian State kind of just been on cruise control without him. He won at App State. Well, so's every damn body else. He hadn't done much at Louisville.
Well, I honestly, we're going to find out tomorrow. I think, tomorrow is one of those games where, I think we're going to find out. We didn't really find out much about either team last week. I really don't think so. I think Louisville came out and got completely laid an egg, and they have a weird schedule. They're actually playing Florida State next week.
Oof.
They're playing South Florida the week after that, which is basically a bye week. They play James Madison. Their non-conference schedule is bizarre. They play James Madison in the middle in early November, and then of course they play Kentucky in the last weekend of the year. So,
Wow.
they have the oddest schedule in the ACC, from what I can tell.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. They got you guys this week, Florida State next week. I'm not sure Satterfield survives after week 3. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts off 0-3 and they show him the door.
Well, I mean, that's not outside the realm of possibility, especially if they don't play well tomorrow night.
And you say South Florida's a bye week. I expect them to get better as the season goes on with that Baylor quarterback. I mean, they looked atrocious against BYU, but I would hope they're going to improve. If not, then that dude will be out.
Speaking of a guy who's coaching for his job,
yeah,
is Jeff Scott right
now.
No doubt. What, 3 games in 2 years?
Yeah. And
they're 1-19 against FBS opponents in the last 20 games.
And I'm going to tell you what, if we're on Louisville and you mentioned JMU,
that's a loss right there.
I'm going to tell you, JMU is a hell of an FCS program, moved up to FBS this year, and their first FBS game against Middle Tennessee State. I don't know if you saw that score, but they dominated them. They won.
Listen, I know better than to sleep on a program like James Madison. That's a legit program that probably should have been FBS a while ago if this was like English Premier League soccer. And
they would have been. They had their opportunity. Actually, they had their opportunity to move up to the Sun Belt during the last round of conference expansion and turn it down.
They wanted to be in America.
They're probably like, we're good. We're fine.
Wanted,
we're fine right where we are. Thank you very much.
They wanted to be Conference USA at the time, and now look at where the Sun Belt is and where Conference USA is, and
exactly.
So they were more than happy to go to the Sun Belt this time around.
I don't blame them in one bit. But that's a legit program. But Louisville's schedule is just really odd. If Satterfield can turn it around, and I actually think that he, depending on how they play tomorrow, he can get he should get a bit of a reprieve. I think if they play well tomorrow and lose on the road in the environment such as the bounce house, I don't see Louisville pulling the trigger just yet. But if they lay an egg, all bets are off.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question for you. It's the Battle of the Scots. So you have, to me, Scott Frost or Scott Satterfield. Who's going to get fired first there in the hot seat? I mean, both those guys are. I mean,
and don't forget about Coach Scott at USF
and Jeff Scott.
Battle of the Scots.
Golly,
I'm
it's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to say. So I'll tell you why.
Okay.
They made a big deal about this in the game out that they played out in Ireland. Is his close game luck is historically bad. Historically bad, like to the point where, if you were to actually, sit back and analyze it, like they're actually due to win a number of close games in a row. Now you could easily say, well, is that the fault of the coaching? I mean, these games are coming down to one play, and you guys know just as well as anybody, you could be the best coach team in the country. If you flip tails on that one play and you lose, I mean, what are you going to do? Right. I mean, we all have seen that happen many times, and it's like he's flipped tails 20 times in a row. Like, what are you going to do? So I'm not as entirely in on Frost getting the gate. They also have a lot invested in him right now. Satterfield kind of feels like that he might be the first to go. But then, again, what does South Florida do? I mean, that's why, we saw Jerry Bohannon, who you were talking about, Kyle, the quarterback from Baylor, who came in as a grad transfer to try and, that was really a win now move by Jeff Scott to bring him in, because he had Timmy McClain, who went to Seminole High School, which is in Sanford, a few miles away from UCF, who played really well against us in the final game of the season, and is a really talented player, but needs to be developed. And they were in on developing him. And then, the message must have come down from up top that, hey, you need to win now. You don't have time to develop a true sophomore quarterback. So he hands the keys to Jerry Bohannon. What does Timmy McClain do? Immediately transfers to UCF and is sitting out the year because it was after the deadline. But he's the scout team quarterback now, and could not have come at a better time to face a guy like Malik Cunningham.
Well,
no doubt.
That's crazy. But Satterfield, sorry, we're want to talk about your game more, but Satterfield actually.
Dave is cutting out on my end. I don't know if that's me or him. Is he cutting out on your end?
He's cutting out on my end too. Sorry, Dave. We'll get you back.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, we can now, Dave. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying the Louisville fans are not happy because I can't remember which job he applied for. They found out about it, but I mean, every coach in America applies for jobs.
South Carolina.
That's right, South Carolina. And that's when, that's right. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. That was the point where people were starting to really like, okay, you're not winning here, and we're Louisville, we're great, and we're Louisville, and you're going to South Carolina, which I have no problems with South Carolina, but that was their attitude, is like, why would you leave Louisville? And so that's when I heard.
You see the kind of checks that they're handing out to SEC coaches these days? That's why.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like you guys were talking about earlier, that's only going to go up in the next few years.
He hasn't been successful enough to think he could leave Louisville for South Carolina, in my opinion. But I mean, he's only had one good season there, really.
I mean, it takes two to tango on that, though, Kyle. I mean, he's somebody in South Carolina must have been like, let's do our due diligence on that.
Oh, I'm sure there was a conversation. He's a Carolina boy, and I'm sure his agent contacted South Carolina, and they talked to him, and but nonetheless, that would have been forgotten had he just had a good season last year.
Right.
And then they were favored against Syracuse. And when you're the favorite on the road and you get your ass handed to you, he's living on borrowed time. And if they go down to Orlando this week and you guys blow them out, I think there's a good chance that could happen. I do know what that quarterback can do when he gets hot. So, I am a little cautious for UCF I know probably UCF's fan base, there's a good portion of them that thinks blowout because of what happened against Syracuse. But I'd be a little cautious because if that quarterback gets hot, it could be a ball game. I do fully expect the Knights to win this game. What's the line, by the way?
5.5 for UCF.
About 5.5. Okay.
Yeah, I just checked it on. I just checked it on OddsShark a second ago, and I'll tell it to you right now. And I like what they give because they give the percentage of bets that have been placed on one side or the other. 79% of the bets have been on UCF minus the 5.5.
Yeah, it seems like a safe bet. I mean, I'm
not so sure about the fan base though. Like you were saying, I think we all still have PTSD from last year.
I look at that line, and to me, when a line doesn't look right,
scares me.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Based on perception coming into the year, and Vegas uses that for the first 2 or 3 weeks. Even if you shit the bed in week 1, they're still going to kind of look at what they projected you to be before the season going into week 2. So that line, if this was week 3 or 4 and Louisville had been playing like that, would look weird to me, and I'd be scared to touch it. I think it's a pretty safe bet to take UCF in the points.
I mean, it's a home game under the lights. UCF has actually, since UCF beat ECU last year in that tight one down in Orlando. UCF has won 8 of its last 10, and their only losses were to Cincinnati and SMU.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea of how of what UCF has been able to accomplish, and those 9 of those first 9 games in the last 10 were with Mikey Keene at quarterback too, who took over for Dylan Gabriel after Dylan got hurt on the last play of the game against Louisville last year, where they did the lateral play and he got his collarbone broken. And that was the last time we saw him in a UCF uniform. He's in Oklahoma now, lit it up in his first game there. But, we got John Rice Plumlee now, who actually beat Keene out for the starting quarterback job, who fans might remember for in 2019, he actually ran for 1,000 yards as a quarterback at Ole Miss. He was splitting time with Matt Corral. And then Lane Kiffin came in after that season and handed the keys to Corral, and Plumlee switched over to wide receiver. Didn't really do much there. He had a prior relationship with Gus because Gus recruited him hard to come to Auburn. Even though he committed to Georgia initially and then decided to go to Ole Miss, it's a small business, right? So he comes in. UCF has given him the opportunity also to play 2 sports, football and baseball, which he did at Ole Miss. He's also an amazing piano player, by the way. I've actually seen him play piano. He's a really good piano player. And he won the starting quarterback job. And his first game last week, could not have asked for much more from him. 4 touchdown passes, ran for a touchdown. They had some problems with the stats last week. And so we initially thought that he was the first UCF quarterback in school history to throw for 300 and run for 100 in one game. But the official stats had him down for 86 rushing yards and over 300 passing yards. But either way, there were a lot of questions about his arm. I mean, his running ability is second to none. The dude's one of the fastest guys in the American at any position, actually. He was one of the fastest players in the SEC when he was there. The questions were about his arm. Could he make the throws? Was he accurate enough? He was a little off target on a few of the plays. He almost overthrew a wide open receiver in the back of the end zone. But he did come down with it for a touchdown. And some of the decisions that he was making, he looked like he was trying to throw the ball into some tight windows, maybe threw the ball with a little bit too much juice on it and had a couple drops. It went right through receivers' hands. But I think overall, for a guy who played his first game at quarterback in over a year and a half, I think that his debut probably could not have gone any better. But we're really going to find out what we got against Louisville. And
the perfect style quarterback to play in that Gus Malzahn system also.
Yeah, I mean, it's we saw that. And I still think like the perfect quarterback to play in Gus Malzahn's system is Cam Newton. But, considering that Gus had him, John Rice is about 6'1", Cam is gigantic. He's certainly, out of all the guys on the roster, aside from Tommy Castellanos, who Gus spent a lot of recruiting capital bringing in as a true freshman, and we saw at the very tail end in garbage time last week. John Rice is the guy. John Rice is exactly the kind of guy that fits. He opens up the playbook for Gus, I think, is the most important thing. Last year, with Keene, Keene is not a very good runner. Gus kind of had to design the offense around him and really couldn't use all of the ammo that he had. Now he can with a guy like John Rice Plumlee back there.
Talk about some of that talent around Plumlee. You have guys, obviously Bowser and Richardson, Ryan O'Keefe, Baker had a solid game a week ago, 5 catches for 84 yards. So talk about that skilled talent around John Rice Plumlee.
Well, that's really the crux of the offense, right? Because in Gus's system, the quarterback's primary job is to get the ball to the playmakers in space. however you can do it. Isaiah Bowser, they took good care of him over the offseason. He got banged up a lot last year, including in the Louisville game. Took a couple shots on his knee that actually still to this to this day are something that they kind of watch out for. Johnny Richardson didn't do overly much last year, but obviously we know about the speed that he's got. Ryan O'Keefe was spectacular last year. He's back, and then of course, like you were saying, Bubba, we got Javon Baker, who came over from Alabama. If you play wide receiver at Alabama, you're pretty good. And then also people forget Kimari Gamble, tight end from Florida, who was a Gator last year in the bowl game when we beat him, and is now sort of more of an outside tight end, much more of a pass catcher rather than a blocker. He caught a touchdown pass yesterday or last week. So that the talent back there is significant. And John Rice did a good job of distributing the ball last week, and we'll see what he can do this week, doing the same thing.
Tell us about the defensive side of the ball. What are the Knights looking like there as they prepare to take on Scott Satterfield's Louisville Cardinals?
Well, defensively, the strength for the Knights is up front in the line and in the back in the secondary. Very experienced secondary. Devontae Brown's probably the best guy back there. Up front, you got guys like Ricky Barber, Tremont Morris, Brash is back, who are really talented. They held South Carolina State, and I know it's an FCS opponent, but they held South Carolina State to 91 total yards last week in the game. The question has always been, what are you going to get from the linebackers? Because we had a lot of guys graduate. We had some got Tatum Bethune transferred out to Florida State. So the linebacking core was a little thin. I thought that they played pretty well. But Travis Williams, defensive coordinator, I think has really done a fine job of making sure that he can kind of cover the weaknesses as he can with that strong defensive line up front, and playing a couple guys in some hybrid positions that put them in positions to make plays on the ball. And I think that was certainly the case last week. Couldn't ask much more from those guys than that. But again, you face a different challenge with Malik this week. So what do you do against that Louisville offense and a dual threat quarterback? And dual threat quarterbacks have traditionally given UCF a lot of problems. We only have to look to last year's game to see that. But this again, big test for everybody. We're going to find out a lot this week.
Sounds like it's going to be a great one, and I'm going to be pulling hard for you guys. Not a Louisville fan. Goes all the way back to.
Listen, I was going to say, like us on the American, Dave, we all got to root for each other in this last. I keep telling UCF fans this, all the time. I'm like, we should hope that every American team goes undefeated before you enter conference play.
It helps our chances if we have a special season like you guys had. What was it, 25 games in a row?
25 wins in a row, yeah.
Unbelievable. Jeff, man, how can we find your work? And thanks. We promise it won't be the length of time it was for, I guess it was a couple of years. A good bit of time since the last time you've been on with us. But I personally am at Jeff_Sharon, but I encourage everybody to follow UCF Banneret _SBN. That's Black and Gold Banneret. We are UCF's SB Nation team site, covering not just UCF football, but also all the sports at UCF. And we have a pretty good track record of keeping of looking at UCF's history, which we're really proud of. And yeah, like I said, it's going to be it's a busy year for UCF with also going to the Big 12. I heard Kyle and Dave, you guys were talking, earlier with our guest from Houston about the Big 12 and everything, and moving into the Big 12. I'll tell you, change. The only thing that's constant in the world is change.
Yeah,
and I know that, and I'm right with you guys in terms of sad to see some old traditions go by the wayside, but the Pac-12 I think is in real trouble.
Well, Jeff, I personally think if the Big 12 is going to bring in some schools from the Pac-12, I think that puts UCF, Cincinnati, and West Virginia on an island, and I think you guys need somebody from the East to kind of even things out. So As the Pirates begin to get on a roll this year and start to dominate the American, we can't do anything about our media market, but we got a fan base, and we're about to be really good in football. So,
well, the thing is about the Big 12 is that I think we're going to start seeing ESPN, Disney, college football, and everybody else college football. And I think in particular with the Big 12, here's the thing that people forget with the Pac-12, they have no grant of rights. So Oregon and Washington, they know that they're going to get that invite to the Big Ten at some point. They're just waiting for Notre Dame to figure out what they want to do. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Stanford and Cal go with them. And I know people laugh about Cal, but college football is political. And Cal is a UC school, UCLA is a UC school. They have to make UC whole, University of California system, which is one of the best public school systems in the United States, maybe the best in terms of state schools. That's why you heard Cal sort of get mentioned with going to the Big. Obviously, we talk about Stanford and the academics. People forget that the Big Ten is an academic league first, but
sure,
but if you forget that, you got to remember that if Oregon and Washington, if they get the call from the Big Ten, and the Arizona and the four corner schools, as we call them, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, get that lifeboat from the Big 12, as has been speculated in a number of places. Well, guess what? That is enough votes to dissolve the Pac-12.
Yes, right.
And when you dissolve the conference, here's the kicker. You dissolve the conference, you can also instruct your lawyers to drop any lawsuits that may be filed on behalf of the conference. So no, and by the way, there's no exit fee for the Pac-12. And if you're Oregon and Washington, if you're going to sign a new television contract, why would you agree to a grant of rights? Which is the only thing that can really hold a league together these days. Just ask the ACC, right? So I don't know, man. It is not looking good for the Pac-12 right now. And if I'm the Big 12, I'm like, hey, I'm sitting in the catbird seat. And by the way, they just announced that they are already opening their negotiations for their TV contract ahead of the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. To me, that'll be the thing. How much money will the Big 12 get? Yeah. How much money is ESPN looking to spend because of losing the Big 10? How much money will they, it won't be set, it won't come out officially, but there'll be numbers talked about how much they will give them if those four corner schools come in. I think that's going to be the key right there, is how much more money will the Big 12 get than the Pac-12?
That's why they opened up that window. And Brett Yormark, the new commissioner of the Big 12, it's a boss move by him, because he can go he can go to his TV partners. And I think it's going to be a combined thing with probably Disney and Fox, just based on inventory situations. And don't forget, this is probably the best basketball league in the country now. And then you're going to add Arizona to that mix. Forget about it. And Utah. So he can go to them and say, look, here's the money that we're looking at if you guys join. Now, you want to hop on board with us? Or do you want to tie yourself to a sinking ship? Because Oregon and Washington are going to bolt as soon as they get a phone call from the Big Ten. That's going to happen. So what do you want to do, guys? And it is a business. It is a business, but only the strong survive in college football. And I'm just glad that we got in on the other side, along with Houston and Cincinnati, to get to this. And that's the thing, is that you were talking about, Kyle, you were talking about market size. Yeah. Cable markets don't really matter as much as they used to, because
tell Mike Oresco's dumbass that.
Well, here's the thing about that, and I talked about that with other people, is it's about potential enrollment, which leads to streaming customers, and which leads to streaming customers and people who buy
I agree with you.
Tickets and apparel. And here's the thing, and I think this is what Oresco kind of has a business model here with the American, because look at what he's been able to do. He hitched his league 10 years ago to a bunch of schools, ECU notwithstanding, but a bunch of schools that are sort of the number 2 school located in in major media markets, kind of like the old Metro Conference, right? So, maybe if, like, for example, Houston's a good example. Yes, Texas is the big dog, but Houston pumps out a lot of graduates, and it's located in it, and is a big place. Yeah, it's a big school. UCF, I get it. Florida, right? We're not that far away. A lot of kids are coming to UCF, largest enrollment in the country. All right. So what does he do now? He pulls in Charlotte. Yeah, North Carolina, Duke, NC State are the big dogs. Charlotte pumps out a lot of graduates.
Nobody
UNT.
cares about Charlotte. Nobody cares about Charlotte.
Well, I know how you feel about Charlotte, but
I'm right.
something.
I'm right.
But
nobody cares about. I live here. Nobody cares about Charlotte,
except for people who are there. But
nobody cares about Charlotte.
They can't
Kyle, sell out a 15,000 stadium.
They said the same exact things about us 15 years ago, and look what happened.
It's not going to happen to Charlotte.
I'm not saying it will, but that's the business model.
The team he should have took in this area, if he wanted the team in a major market in this area, should have been Old Dominion. Old Dominion. There's the biggest media market in America without a professional sports team. Old Dominion has a presence in that area. They could become the number 3 school in Virginia. I think they already are. That would have been the move in this area, not Charlotte. Charlotte was a mistake. UAB was a mistake. Nobody cares about UAB. Nobody's ever going to care about. Nobody ever has cared about UAB. The only school that he added.
I'm having flashbacks right now to some of the stuff that you're saying. Because they said the same thing about UCF.
I never said it about UCF.
I know you didn't, but I've heard a number of other people say it. And I'm saying, and listen,
UTSA
all of a sudden,
was the only one
with the right administration, and what we saw in the last 10 years is you catch lightning in a bottle. They caught lightning in a bottle with Houston, with Cincinnati, with UCF. You just never know when a good administration comes in, who hires a good coach, who all of a sudden starts pumping out a team that starts winning games. And by the way, he's got a really good contract, media contract with ESPN. So you know that they're going to get talked about, right? Go ask the Mountain West how their television contract is. And I know everyone likes to talk about, let's go get Mountain West schools. Look at that TV contract. Nobody cares about them. Even fewer people care about the entire Mountain West Conference than care about Charlotte because they're not on television. So if you're on ESPN, you have the bully pulpit. It's been great for the American over the last 10 years. This conference has provided ESPN with a lot of good content. And
I agree.
And I'm just saying, you never know. You were talking earlier about UTSA. That's the school, UTSA, and I know you're going to laugh, but Florida Atlantic. Those are the 2 schools who.
I think Florida Atlantic has potential because Boca Raton. They got a nice stadium. Yeah. They got potential. UTSA was a great ad. Charlotte, I would have went Old Dominion. There's a whole. I would have taken
Marshall.
You look at.
You don't want Marshall.
Look at
you don't want Huntington, West Virginia.
Why's that?
Because that school has a very low ceiling in terms of pumping out graduates and enrollment, and has a very limited television audience. Not talking about television market. I'm talking about television audience. They just do not draw outside of West Virginia in average years. And there's just not enough people in the area that cares about Marshall to sustain that.
Yeah, I maybe not. I'll say this about Charlotte, and then we'll wrap that discussion up. Of all the teams they added, and I can tell you because East Carolina, North Carolina State, Appalachian State, Duke, Wake Forest, it is going to be, and you can't compare it to UCF. To me, there's no comparison. You guys had an enrollment and a stadium. You guys playing at the Citrus Bowl before you built your stadium. Charlotte just it's a death trap, and we'll see who ends up being right on that one. And I'll put money on myself.
We couldn't fill up. We could not fill this more than about 30,000 in the Citrus
But let
Bowl.
me ask you a question.
When we built the on-campus stadium, that changed everything.
Do you guys have an NFL team in Orlando?
No.
You got one professional? Well, you got two. You got an NHL team. You have an NHL team? I don't know. I don't follow hockey.
No. The
NHL.
only thing we have in Orlando is the Orlando Magic in the
There
NBA.
you go.
That's it. And MLS.
That's the difference between Charlotte and UCF right there. Charlotte's got the Panthers. Charlotte has the Hornets. Charlotte has the MLS team. Charlotte's the home of NASCAR. Nobody cares about the Charlotte 49ers, and nobody ever will.
That's the thing is they don't have to care more than X or Y. They just have to care enough to sustain that streaming audience. And I'll leave you with this point on it. Old Dominion's enrollment. What is it? I want to let you guess on that one.
ODU's enrollment. If I had to guess, 20,000.
Okay. What would you guess UNC Charlotte's enrollment is?
Probably around.
I know what it is.
Don't say it, Dave. Don't say it.
Well, I know I keep up with this because they rotate with us in enrollment, so it's right around 30,000.
Yeah, UNC Charlotte's latest enrollment fall 2020, 30,000 students. ODU 24,000. Mm-hmm. And the thing is with UNC Charlotte, big public school, and ODU has that going for it as well as a public research university. But again, you're located in Norfolk, Virginia.
Biggest media market in America without a professional sports team.
But it's still small, especially compared to Charlotte.
The Charlotte media market and the Norfolk, Virginia Beach media market. Check the two media markets real fast if you have time.
Charlotte's bigger.
Charlotte's bigger, but it's not as much. It's not that much bigger.
No, I don't think we'll.
I'm going to look that up because I'm actually interested in that too. Television station list of U.S. television.
I think
markets.
Charlotte's around. Isn't Charlotte around 20?
Charlotte's 22.
22. Okay. Yeah.
And Norfolk's 46.
So there you go. I mean, in the grand scheme,
but here's what's around Norfolk. 45 is Birmingham. 47 is Greensboro High Point.
Mm-hmm.
That's 48 is Albuquerque, Santa Fe, New Mexico. 44 is Oklahoma City. 43 Jacksonville. So that's pretty small. And the whole thing is graduates.
And then you're going to add in, and I would argue
metro markets.
I would add in add in the next biggest media market closest. You got Richmond, and then you got the DC, the DMV, the Northern Virginia DC area. So, I mean, we could argue this all day. After Charlotte, you got Raleigh, and they're pretty busy. That's the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. ODU still has that, and the other thing I think is that ODU still kind of has that new kid on the block thing as well. There's, I'm not saying that Charlotte is, is a storied franchise out here. But
I'll tell you what,
ODU is still relatively new to FBS.
You stay in the American with them, and we'll go to the Big 12.
Hey, hey, listen, we are taking that ticket and we are running, and listen, it's that's what got UCF over the top is the combination of enrollment, pumping out a lot of graduates. I think that's where it is because college football, college sports in general, we're going to see it become. It's always been a regional sport, but it's going to become a lot more regional, and it's the manifestation of the 80-20 rule. 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. So the concept of, I think, broad audiences, I think, is going away. And we're just going to go for, college football, especially at the top levels,
going forward.
I hope so for that. I hope so for that program. It's going to be a tough walk up because, what does ECU offer? What does ECU offer a conference like, say, the ACC or the Big 12?
You're just talking about graduates and eyeballs to stream. I mean,
we only had Jeff. We only had the number 9 game watched in the country on Saturday. We were in the top 10, so we do offer a lot of eyeballs. I think that one of the things is that
but that was also against North Carolina State.
Oh, nobody cares about East Carolina. You're right. We don't have any fans, and we suck.
No, I'm not.
And we'll see you in October. We'll see you in October.
Hey, listen, and I'm looking forward to that one because I mean, Holton Ahlers is pushing my age.
We'll
finally get to see him one more time. I just, now's the time, right? It's for every school that's going to be behind that's going to be in the American. Now's the time to really prove it. I just, I think ECU is in a better position now. I'm not particularly. A lot of people think of like what schools have done lately in terms of on-field results. I actually tend to downplay that because on-field results are fairly fickle. As to just ask Scott Frost, but what do you get in terms of alumni engagement
for East Carolina? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Have you been to Dowdy Ficklen Stadium besides when Scotty Montgomery was the head coach? We led the group of 5 in attendance every year up until Scotty Montgomery was the head coach.
Right,
our enrollment's around 30,000.
Right, but it's not just attendance. It's what are your TV ratings?
We just told you we had the number 9 ranked game this past week.
Right, that's this past week. What about long term?
I have no idea. I have no clue.
That's the thing that these guys with the spreadsheets look at. And
well, you're saying going forward, alumni, the amount of students you graduate, our enrollment's around 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of alumni already. Our enrollment's just going to continue to go up. I'm sorry. So the argument is the old school media market argument. That's the only thing we have against us.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I don't subscribe to that, at least as of right now. It's just I'm always curious to see how many people, and this is, by the way, what also helped UCF is its other sports. We get a lot of streaming audience for basketball and ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus has been great.
I'll tell you. I'll give you a good example. During baseball season on ESPN Plus, most American schools did not have advertisement revenue during their ESPN Plus baseball games being sold through ESPN. East Carolina did. We had legitimate advertisers for every ESPN Plus baseball game because we had more streaming eyeballs for baseball than anybody else in the American.
Yeah, and that's great for ECU, and that's and in particular. But what about basketball?
Oh, we suck at basketball. That's always been a problem. And that continues to be a problem. But football drives the ship, and we're about to turn it around in football. And we'll see what happens. But we can't do anything about our media market. That is one thing we can't do anything about. We can't move Greenville to Charlotte. That's
we have a lot of fans. We have a lot of alums all over the place. In fact, I go out of the country. I've been out of the country many times, and even if you count like the Bahamas, there's always somebody with an ECU shirt on everywhere. Yeah. So, if you recall, alumni is not a biggie. But anyway, we have to run. Thank you so much, Jeff, and we'll have you back obviously in October with a big game.
Thanks, you got it, guys.
October.
I know it's going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also not looking forward to it because actually I think ECU's on the right track. And goodness me, Holton Ahlers. I mean, how many more years of eligibility has this guy got left, man?
Yes, 3 actually. 3 more years.
3 more years. How many more degrees is this kid going to get from your school, man? He's accounting for half the enrollment by himself. What's going on with this thing?
There you go.
Hey, come. All right, guys. Good talking to you as always. Stay safe out there. All right.
All right. See you later. All right. Good night.
I hope Louisville beats their fucking ass. I hope Louisville beats them 52-0. And when they come to Greenville, I don't give a damn. Look, I have colon cancer surgery Monday. I don't give a damn if I have to be there in an iron lung. I hope we beat their stupid Mickey Mouse asses all the way back to Orlando and take a piss on them as they make their way to the Big 12. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey,
pretty good, guys. How are you doing?
Oh, I was all right. It got me fired up. I got a lot going on these days right now. I don't need some asshole from Orlando to get me fired up, and now I'm fired up.
Well, yeah, Jeff, welcome into the show. Obviously, a big game, Appalachian State and A&M this week, and want to get your thoughts on it.
Well, I think from A&M's perspective, the offensive line is going to be kind of a key for them. The group didn't play very well last weekend, except in stretches. Sam Houston stunted and stemmed its front a lot, which caused the Aggies a lot of issues in terms of their communication, getting a hat on hat. They weren't able to take advantage of their size. In addition, starting tight end Max Wright was out. Unfortunately, that meant that the second tight end, Blake Smith, was out. And so they took their backup left tackle, Demetrius Crownover, who'd played some tight end back in high school, and inserted him in the starting lineup. And he kind of played tentative because he'd been a left tackle basically for the last year. So the combination of all that really didn't work very well for the Aggies. If they can block better this weekend, if they can communicate better, then they'll be able to be a lot more likely to get the running game going. Defensively, I think Appalachian State is going to have a very hard time matching up with A&M simply because you just don't see this kind of size and athleticism and depth in the front four. A&M with their recruiting classes, not just the heralded 2022 class, but the 3 that they had before that, all ranked in the top 10. They've got a lot of big, fast people up front. They just come at you in waves, have a lot of talent. They have very experienced, good people in the back 7 behind those guys. So I think for Appalachian State, they're going to run in the same things that a lot of people are going to run into this season when they play A&M. And that's, can you block A&M? And that's going to be a real challenge for those guys. And it's certainly, and again, it's going to be a very, very unique set of circumstances. This isn't like trying to block North Carolina. This is a totally different animal.
Jeff, last week Appalachian had trouble stopping UNC. Obviously, high scoring game. App's offense performed well against the Tar Heels. Emotionally, after a game like that, App's got to be drained. Playing a team as talented as Texas A&M. Appalachian's never afraid of anybody. They're always upset-minded, but I think it's a tall mountain to climb for the Mountaineers this week.
Yeah, A&M is probably going to hit some big plays down the field. They've got more, they've got more speed at receiver than they've had in past years. I don't know if you guys know about this guy named Evan Stewart. He was a 5-star in the class of 2022. He was a track guy in high school. He also played soccer. So he's not only fast, but he's got extremely quick feet. He's a very, very fluid kid watching him run. And it's, A&M I've followed A&M for 50 years. A&M just never has had anyone like him. They've had some good receivers come through that program, guys like Christian Kirk, who's now with Jacksonville, but they just haven't had anybody like this guy. And there were a couple. He caught 5 passes. 3 of them went for first downs. He would catch a crossing route, take it 30 yards across field, make a guy or 2 miss. And when you pay attention to a guy like that, their slots, Anaya Smith, who's the veteran, also handles the punt returns for the Aggies. Keith Brown, who's a speedster out of Florida in his second year. When you start paying too much attention to the outside guys, now they've got inside guys that can read routes and get deep on you. Smith's not as fast as Brown, but Smith understands the game. He understands coverages. Brown's going to be the guy that, hey, look, if you get in man coverage and you don't have someone over the top and he gets behind the corner, then you're in real trouble. So again, A&M's got to be able to block Appalachian State, or they're gonna struggle to move the ball, and that will give Appalachian State some hope. But quite honestly, even compared to the rest of the SEC, A&M's just a different animal because of Jimbo Fisher's determination to have as many big and fast defensive linemen as he can.
What's the ceiling for the Aggies this year? Do you guys expect to win the SEC? I mean, obviously Bama's Bama. You know, they're always going to be Bama. People, you know, they're the odds-on favorite along, you know, with Georgia. But does Jimbo have the team this year to compete for an SEC championship, or are you guys a year away?
He definitely has the team, but you know, the odds are probably against them doing that this season. I think 2023 is a different story simply because they are relatively young in a lot of spots. And unfortunately, the offensive line, they got younger than what they anticipated. One of the reasons they had so many issues last weekend, they were supposed to bring back 3 starters to that group. And again, they were supposed to have Max Wright playing tight end, who was the second tight end last year. Wright was missing. The starting center, Bryce Foster, had mononucleosis. He's out for at least a couple of more weeks, probably. Layden Robinson, who's considered to be a first-round caliber guard, was hampered, played only about a third of the snaps. So it's just not the same group that they thought it was going to be. And that caused them a lot of problems there. We'll see if they start getting healthier and also have a chance to play together some and improve the communication aspect of things in the coming weeks. The defensive line is going to improve by leaps and bounds as those young guys get some snaps. Some of the Haynes King at quarterback, he threw a couple of picks. He's aggressive. He doesn't slide when he runs. He likes to throw the ball where his guy can make a play on it, but maybe the defender can too. So it will be fascinating to see how this team progresses as the season goes on. They've certainly got the athleticism, how fast they can grow up, and what happens on October 8th in Tuscaloosa against Alabama is kind of determine whether or not they can take the division and from then have a chance to play for the SEC title.
Jeff, I don't know if Bubba and Dave got anything more for you specifically about the Appalachia game, but I just wanted to ask you about Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC, renewing some old rivalries there with your regional schools. How do A&M fans feel about that? Are you guys happy to have Texas and Oklahoma come in? Did you guys like the separation of them being in the Big 12, y'all being in the SEC? What's the reaction been?
A&M's fans and administration both liked the fact that A&M was the only Texas school in the SEC. It was a branding opportunity they took maximum advantage of. It was a recruiting opportunity that they took maximum advantage of. It was considering what A&M in their minds, what A&M meant to the SEC during its first decade in the league. It was it carried a great sense of betrayal. Whether people liked it or not, A&M really, and the SEC really didn't communicate with A&M when the move was being contemplated and discussed, and A&M felt like that it should have been more involved. But then again, I don't think A&M would have felt much differently one way or the other. A&M would have been against the move. And also when you're, as you guys know from conference realignment, when you're one of the targets, you tend to keep your mouth shut. When you're one of the guys in that league or one of the guys being left behind, nobody tells you a whole lot. So I think over time, as long as A&M can continue to be good in football, I think those issues will be dissipated. And in particular, I've written a lot about about the A&M Texas rivalry, how it got put on the shelf by realignment. A&M didn't have a lot to do with that after they joined the SEC. Texas did, but then A&M figured that, hey, look, we're benefiting, so we don't need to play them. They need us more than we need them. And so A&M fans kind of developed an emotional distance between themselves and Texas. I think that will go away in a single millisecond when the two teams hook back up, whenever that will be, wherever that will be.
Yeah, I personally think it's good for college football to have schools like that together again. I think we're getting too far from what college football is supposed to be. And to me, it's regional rivalries. That's, look at the ratings the Backyard Brawl did this past week. I think it's good for college football for Texas and Texas A&M and Oklahoma. to all be together again in the same league. Personally, whether A&M fans like it or not, as a college football fan, I think it's good.
Well, I think one concern A&M fans kind of had, and there's some legitimacy to this, is that A&M fans spent the first 10 years. A&M has always had more of a let's say an SEC culture to it. It's located near Houston, which is probably the most, if you had to, it's the most southern city, so to speak, in the state. It has a lot more in common with places like Atlanta, Mobile, because it's on the coast, New Orleans. It certainly has more in that regard. It's a conservative school culturally and politically. A&M fans have really enjoyed playing the Mississippi, the Alabamas and Auburns, because in the Big 12, one week you might be playing an 80,000 seat stadium, but most of the time you're going to be playing in 50, 60,000 seat stadiums, and we know that's not the case in the SEC. Football is life and death in the SEC, and A&M fans really enjoyed that aspect of it, even though they hadn't taken home any conference titles. Now that changes, and what I don't think they want to do is wind up playing Texas and OU at the expense of the schools that they actually join the SEC to play every year and to be a part of that culture. And so it'll be real interesting to see where the scheduling goes when all that shakes out here in another year or two.
No doubt.
Yeah, as far as you were talking about with A&M and with the old, I guess, Southwest Conference rivals, they're coming in. As far as the SEC goes, how do you feel about overall with the conference? And do you see any more teams coming into the league, getting more expansion with the realignment? It seems like it's always happening every year.
I think that all depends on the networks. For all the talk about, it was funny to see or hear, Kevin Warren talk about, the networks didn't have anything to do with expansion. And then ESPN's, the head of that network was Brendan Magnus, was probably got the name wrong there. He was saying a week or two ago, no, we don't have anything to do with that. We don't have anything to do with expansion. All I know is in the spring, the Big Ten exercised its option to increase its ownership of the Big Ten network from 51% to 61%. And then just a few months later, they go all the way to the West Coast to snag USC and UCLA. Before that, Texas and OU, remember that ESPN and Fox said, hey, we're not interested in talking to the Big 12 about their TV contract, which was expiring in 2025. They said, we're just not going to talk to you. Well, sure enough, a few weeks later, what happens? Texas and OU get an invitation to the SEC. So I know everybody wants to deny that, but the television networks are what drive things. And one thing to keep in mind about ESPN, they have the ACC locked up long-term, very, very cheap for them. They can make a lot of money off that league. And so I don't see ESPN making it worthwhile for the SEC from a financial standpoint to add teams as long as they can continue to make the money that they can off of the ACC. And I think that will even be the case from the Big Ten. I think, from what we can tell, Notre Dame's not going anywhere. They're going to get enough money from NBC to stay independent. I think what's going to happen is that you're going to have the two big players. They're just going to battle for the supremacy of college football. And, we can argue about whether or not that's going to be good for the sport, but that's what's going to happen. They're going to divvy up the leagues, and they're going to, we've started on the road down to where we're only going to have a certain number of teams that are making the most money, and then their next tier is not going to be making as much money. We're kind of, in another few years, we'll really already be there. It's going to be interesting to see where the playoff goes. One of the things in the Big Ten, they made a big deal Back when the playoff expansion was previously discussed, they said no, we don't want to, we want to see a playoff where you've got multiple entities televising your product, because that's where we're going to make the most money. And that actually rang true when for the Big Ten, at least, that rang true when in the way they divided up that TV package. However, it's going to be interesting to see if the CFP committee, if the people that run that, feel the same way when we go to 12 teams and they have to divvy up the TV package. Or they keep it all with ESPN, or are they going to divvy it up with ESPN and Fox? Or are they going to do over the air?
I think it's going to be wherever the most money can be made, without a doubt. And I love the playoffs going to 12. I love that it's the 6th highest rated conference champions, because that means a so-called group of 5 till school will get a shot each year. We'll see how long that format stays in play. But, it gives the East Carolinas and the Boise States, et cetera, of the world hope to build something. I think it's good for college football. You mentioned about the SEC and the Big Ten kind of separating themselves from everybody. I think that's already happened. Of course, if you listened to our previous conversations with some Big 12 fellas, they think the Big 12 is going to just rip apart the Pac-12, and they're all set to compete with the SEC and the Big Ten. I kind of disagree with that. I kind of think the Big Ten and the SEC are going to kind of rule the roost. You do make an interesting point. The ACC ESPN deal, they have a hell of a grant of rights deal for the ACC schools to get out of. And you're right. What benefit is it to ESPN to have the SEC take ACC schools and then have to pay the SEC more money when the ACC contract is a relative bargain for the ESPN? So I personally think for the next probably 5 years, conference expansion is kind of going to maybe stay where it is. I do think it'll change eventually, but I think we probably got a 5-year window here where things are going to stabilize. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's going to go ahead and happen within the next 5?
I think it probably stabilizes, simply because I just can't imagine ESPN making the moves that will be made. I think going forward into the foreseeable future will be the ones in the leagues such as the Big 12, where ESPN and perhaps Fox gets involved, and they're able to pay reasonable sums of money relative to the SEC and the Big Ten, and fill up the rest of their for ESPN it's a bigger deal than it is Fox. Fox doesn't necessarily have to sit there and fill up windows over multiple networks on a Saturday. ESPN has got to keep finding ways to create content. So they're going to have to go to these leagues as kind of like, the B, use a very old school term, but I'm an old guy, the B side, for ESPN2, ESPNU. Fox has got
pretty much Fox and FS1. They do have FS2, but they very rarely put college football on FS2.
Right.
And then the regional Fox Sports networks is, they've kind of gone the way of the dodo bird. Nobody even really, do they even exist much anymore? So I agree with you. And I don't know, I heard talking to some Big 12 guys, 50 million per team being bandied around. I'm highly doubting that. I think they're going to be in the 30 million per team range, if that.
Well, I'd heard last year when Texas and OU left the Big 12, and this is from someone that would know that package at the time was going to be around 15 million. That may have gone up since then. I haven't talked to anybody since then, and that's when the SEC, I think their package was estimated at that point in time at about 35 million. So I think whatever the SEC and Big Ten shake out at, maybe the Big 12 maybe that league can generate, let's say 40-50% of what the SEC and Big Ten can. On the other, and again, they can go to ESPN and go, hey, look, guys, you know what? We want to be broadcast, but we want some we want some serious coin, because we know you've got to come to us to fill up everything that's not SEC football related.
But somebody's got to be betting against them. And you mentioned how much is Fox going to be motivated. NBC's not going to be motivated. So, if they offer them $30 million, is Fox going to be motivated to offer them $40 million per school even? I'm with you. I don't see Fox needing the inventory.
Yeah, Fox and for Fox and NBC, it's interesting. Another thing that's interesting too is that Fox really Fox, they really like the fact that they use their Saturday college football as a lead into their Sunday football games. I think that was one of the things that was attractive to NBC stepping into Saturday night primetime football, was they could use it Saturday night primetime, Sunday primetime. ESPN doesn't get that same benefit. They have Saturday football that leads into NFL game, the NFL pregame show. So they have to go to Monday night football. So it's all going to be interesting to see how it shakes out and where people think their dollars should be spent. But I think, just to answer your question, foreseeable future, I think below the SEC Big Ten level, I think everything pretty much stays the same, unless the Big Ten wants to go raid the rest of the Pac-12. And from what I understand, will that actually make more money for each Big Ten team? Probably not. In fact, it might be less per team. If it's less per number one rule of expansion is, if you're not going to make more money per team,
why add?
You're not going to do it.
Yeah. Speaking of Monday Night Football, the worst decision ever to put it on ESPN. Put it back. You said you were old guy. And put it back on ABC. You can make a lot more money.
This Monday night's game is simulcast, ABC and ESPN, Dave.
Well, hey, they need to do that every week. No doubt.
Yeah, you would think that they would figure that out, but nobody seems to be able to figure out simple stuff like that anymore. And I'm not sure, again, from everything I've read, and I'm no expert on the subject, from everything I've read, network TV, their most valuable packages continue to be live sports. So why wouldn't you dedicate one night, especially now where you can sit there, dedicate one night of the week to a game, and to the NFL particularly, which is basically a license to print money. And then if you want to fill that slot in the spring, you've got 13 episode shows that you can do that with. It's not near the problem that it was a few years ago. So yeah, why don't they do that? Don't know.
Well, unfortunately, I don't make those decisions, and I don't have the salaries there. But I mean, you have Troy Aikman and help me, guys.
Joe Buck.
Joe Buck. Oh my gosh, Joe Buck. Yeah, the two of them, they're giving them like ridiculous amount of money. Put it on ABC. But anyway, what the heck do I know? We appreciate Jeff. Thank you so much for your patience tonight. I'm sorry we've been running way long, but we want to let everybody know how people can get on 20 gig them 27 24
gig them 24/7, and we've even got depth chart. Jimbo Fisher won't run a depth chart, but we will. So we got quite a few views off that today, and we're gonna have an A&M depth charts up for both offense and defense for the rest of the season, simply because A&M won't do that anymore. So hey, and again, right now we're in a rhythm. We get you get your Saturday post game stuff, you get your Sunday breakdowns that I do. You get the all the recruiting scoop on the visits on Sunday from Andrew Hattersley and Brian Peroni. And then Jimbo Fisher has his press conference on Monday and starts all over again.
Jeff, thank you for coming on. Nice to hear your soothing Texas voice after that dude from Orlando put me into a rage. You calmed me down. Good stuff.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time.
All right. Have a good one.
Yes, sir.
All right, appreciate Jeff very much. And
Dave, I was mad, man. I tell you what, it's hard to get me that angry. It's hard to get me, Bubba. I'm surprised you didn't get on air and start yelling too. It's hard right now with what all I got on my mind to even get me that angry about anything because I got so much more bigger, important things on my mind.
So
But
he helped you out there.
Huh?
He helped you out then.
If that dude would have been here in front of me, woo boy, well, let's just say an old boy from LaGrange and an old boy from Orlando. Who do you think will come out on top?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, well, I know. I think Bubba knows.
I'm not promoting violence on our show.
Yeah, guys, I'm telling you right now. Did we have any viewers? Was there any comments during that idiot when he was on? I mean, I can't imagine.
I think that what you're missing out on is I think that
he's a complete imbecile.
No, that he totally got your goat. I think he was messing with you, and you just.
That's all right. There you go. There you go. Hey, look. I've already cussed enough on this show, but I'll just say F around to find out. So you want to get my goat? Well, come talk to me. Come talk to me in October. Chemotherapy or not, come talk to me face to face in October and get my goat.
October 22nd, right?
Come on, baby. Come on.
Well, we got to get you to the tailgate. Come on, and Jeff Sharon can come by and hang out, and y'all can talk about.
Oh yeah. Oh, we'll see how much she wants to talk face to face.
Who's bigger? I am. No, you are. No, I am. I mean, come on. It was. I didn't. I just thought it was funny because you totally went down that rabbit hole and you stayed down there.
Well, Dave, you know what, man? I got a temper, and I don't take a lot of crap off people, especially some little pencil neck geek from Orlando, Florida. And that's just kind of how I roll, and I don't back down from anybody. And so he's a disrespectful little bitch. And
wow.
He disrespected East Carolina constantly. I can't believe you guys weren't as mad as I was. Bubba, did you hear the clown?
I certainly agree with your point. As far as what he was saying, and I know other Pirates messaged me privately, and they did as well.
Well, good. I hope they appreciated my attitude, and if I offended anybody with my language, I apologize. But Bubba with the sound effects.
For some reason, I'm not hearing them on my end. But
Bubba, play up. Okay, all right. Bubba, play that interview.
That will
for
always
your dad.
be a classic.
Okay, all right. We can stop now with the sound effects. Bubba, play that interview for Gary and see what he thinks. And see what he thinks of my reaction.
Will do.
I bet your dad is going to react very similar to me.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is you can be mad about it. I mean, but the reality is, like, who really cares? Like, we have a great school. Like, why get in a pissing match with somebody that if you think he's a clown?
Because I can't stand a smart little bitch.
But why would you care? Why do you care?
Because he's a smart little. Because Dave, he was putting down our school. And he's a smart little bitch.
So what if there's thousands of people? Are you just going to get in fights with every single one of them?
You know what? If there's one thing I got and it served me well my whole life is my ability to get pissed off and fight, and it's probably going to serve me better right now in my life than it ever has before. So if being full of piss and vinegar and wanting to fight and not taking crap off people has served me for 41 years, and as I'm fighting cancer, it'll probably serve me well now. I'm not going to take shit from him. I'm not taking shit from cancer. I'm not taking shit from anything else. 41 years, it served me well so far being me.
All right. We just have it. We're different. We're different people. That's fine. There's no worries on that. I mean, I don't care because I know our school is great. I don't have to go around, saying, hey, ECU is great when everybody knows how much I love ECU. And
look, the dude from Texas A&M was pissing me off when he was calling Appalachian State. I said, I muted my phone. I said, they call it if Texas A&M called them Appalachian State about one more time, they might get their asses whipped because App State don't play either. I mean, how hard is it to get a school name right? It's East Carolina and it's Appalachian State. It's not Eastern Carolina and it's not Appalachian State.
Yeah, I think it's Havoc XL 200. Kyle is not a coward. I will take up for him. He was talking crap when the guest was on.
Who called me a coward?
This guy right here,
Let's see.
Havoc XL 200. I don't know who that is.
Well, Well, first of all, use your real name, son. And if one thing I'm not, I promise you, I'm not a coward.
No, you're not. I will give you that. I'm just saying I'm not anti you or what you're saying. I'm just saying, what good does it do to get you so upset when I think?
Oh, I need it sometimes, baby. I need it. Sometimes it's good to get upset. Sometimes it's good to let off some steam. You know, it's somebody like that. I can't stand a little smarmy, smart ass, sarcastic, trying to get under. If he's trying to get under my skin, it worked. Congratulations, he got what he wanted. He got what he wanted. If that's what he wanted, if he wanted to get under my skin, it worked. I can't stand people like that. But Dave, maybe you can deal with it. Bubba, you're pretty chill all the time. But me, I'm ready to slap him. I wish Matt would have been up here.
No, I'm just saying I get what you're saying, but I mean we should be used to now. Yeah, here we go. Craig is the man. We love you, Craig, too, because we have a lot of great people. And again, I don't have to defend my university. I think it's fantastic, over and over again. Like that's the case. People can talk all kinds of junk all they want. After what I've been through the last few years personally, man, professionally, I've had, especially at work, I've been called every name under the sun because I won't let people visit their loved ones or whatever because of COVID. But that's a whole nother show, as they say. But hey, we're still surviving. We're still great. And, guess what? We've got a game coming up on Saturday night that I hope that we win. Do you want to give your predictions for the game? Let's do that and get out of here for ODU and ECU.
Yeah, glad to know you guys have my back. I appreciate that. Pirates win 31-21.
I didn't say I didn't have your back, my brother. Let's see. So for me, I really like the Pirates in this game. I'm going, I'll say 31-17 Pirates.
No score prediction from me. I will say that I think it'll probably be something along those lines. But the main thing, Pirates win, get to 1-1, and get ready for Campbell coming in next week. Campbell was victorious over the Citadel 29-10 in their first game, and now they travel to William and Mary, taking on the Tribe up in Williamsburg. Very interested to see how that one goes.
No doubt. And certainly, Bubba, do you have the numbers from last week, how bad we did, how good we did?
Which numbers are you referencing? You talking about?
All four of us, we picked who we thought who was going to win.
Well, Kyle and Matt weren't able to make their picks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it got busy, and I forgot to send those games to them. But so we can start keeping it this week. But I think I was 5-4-1, and I'm not sure what you were, Dave. Something similar, because we agreed on most picks, so we were both right there around or just above 500.
Are we doing picks this week?
We'll make those. We'll just do that off air, and then we'll take a look at them next Thursday night.
All right. Sounds good. Before we get out of here, I want to thank our great sponsors first, and we'll tell you about our weekday programming we have going every single day of the week. Let's do our sponsors first. Hello to Kevin Walker. KK is the man, L&K Custom Homes. Give him a call. He's a licensed general contractor, and you can call Kev at 336-688-8461. And, if you know anything about Kevin Walker, he's one of the best athletes we ever had at ECU. And, man, what a great DB he was back in the day. And we have a lot of DBs now that are good. But, my gosh, he was one of the best of all time. How about Porky's Backyard Barbecue? I was there tonight talking to them, and they're going to be with us. Hey, guys, tailgate again. They're sponsoring our tailgate this week. And, Bubba, they're going to have your barbecue for you. I know that the only thing they told me they're bringing so far is they're going to bring those great wings they have and barbecue. But they're located at 805 East Boulevard in Williamston. You can dine in. They have the drive-through. They're open daily 11 to 8. They've got some of the best ribs and barbecue chicken as well, in addition to barbecue and chicken and seafood. Great stuff. Appreciate their support of the program. And Kyle, how about PGXgloves.com?
PGXgloves.com. Get your custom gloves. Kids play sports of any kind, baseball, softball, football. They got gloves for them. If you like to play golf and you want to look all fancy and customized out there on the golf course, go get you some custom golf gloves for PGXgloves.com. Put in promo code ECU. Save yourself 20% at checkout.
All right. Appreciate
25%.
That's right. 25% of it. Just put ECU in that promo code. Hey, guys, also Team Boneyard, want to let them know they're creating NIL opportunities for current and future Pirates. Donate today. Go Pirates. Appreciate teamboneyard.org and their great stuff there. And Bubba and Kyle. Hey, Kyle, I don't know if you had a chance to check it out. Our new programming we have nightly has been fantastic. And man, that absolute empowerment, guys, on Monday night with Coach Logan, Labor Day Monday, and Jeff Connors was outstanding. We have our Pirate preview on Tuesday, Pirate breakdown with Sutton Young, and Sonny and Zemenza. That was last night, Wednesday. Of course, our show tonight is the Inside Slant. If you're watching live or listening, that's a weekly college football preview. Bubba, how about Friday's show? That's a special one for you, I know.
Yeah, Pirates Life for me. I caught up with Pat Lane, an alumnus of East Carolina College. I believe that's the way it went down. He graduated from East Carolina College right before it became East Carolina University there, in 69, 70, right around there. But very excited to, have folks hear that conversation with Pat. And we could have talked for 3 or 4 hours. It was, he's someone I've known since I was a child and made multiple road trips and going to West Virginia at least a couple times with Pat and my dad. And then also went to West Point in 95. That was a road trip for the ages. And if you ever had the opportunity to go to West Point, whether it's to watch the Pirates play, which obviously would be the best case scenario, but anytime you have a chance to go to West Point to see a ball game or just to visit the academy, definitely go and check it out. It's a thing of beauty, especially there, when the leaves are changing colors like they were in early November of 95. But that conversation with Pat, we not only talked athletics, but he and his wife, Lynn, are very, very involved on the academic side of the university. And so he shared thoughts there as well. And she's an alum of Greensboro College, but very involved at ECU. So definitely check that out. And in addition to that content, we'll have our Pirate football playback, as Dave mentioned, presented by L&K Custom Homes on Sundays. We'll take a look back at what is hopefully the Pirates' first victory of 2022. And then on Tuesday, if you haven't had the opportunity to watch and listen yet, our Pirate preview, we had Harry Minium of ODUsports.com. Also,
Great guy. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that visit with Harry Minium. And then you also had Ricky Ronnie, do not call me Ricky Bobby, and the head coach of the Monarchs in his 3rd season, but just second on the field. And then obviously Andrew Bays, who's splitting time with Kevin Monroe as the color analyst alongside Jeff Charles this year on the Playfly Sports Network.
Great stuff there. And I tell you what, guys, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great week. It's a busy time for us, but don't forget to subscribe to the Sports Objective YouTube channel. We've had a lot of people, Bubba, we've had a lot of people this week do that. I guess it's because of our daily programming, but appreciate that. And we'll give everybody a shout out who's done that. And tell all your Pirate friends, even if they're not Pirates, to join and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone's support on that platform. If you tune in there, be sure to click subscribe. Also click all there on the notification bell, so you're alerted on your device when we release new content. And if you're an audio only listener on whatever podcast platform, be it Audio Boom, Spotify, Anchor, or a combination of those platforms, just be sure to click subscribe as well, or follow, whatever it is on that individual podcast platform.
No doubt about it. I'm just laughing at Craig. He's asking if PGX Glove, do they make boxing gloves for Kyle? I don't think.
I got bare knuckle, baby. Bare knuckle.
All right, so you don't need any boxing gloves.
That's bare knuckle. Let's go. I'm ready.
You get in the squared circle?
Do what?
Get in the boxing ring?
Get the boxer, whatever. You know what? It's all a big joke. It's all a big joke. But look, here's the deal. If some little smarmy ass clown from Orlando, Florida, from UCF is going to talk crap about East Carolina University, about our fan base, about, how we are what we are, we ain't never going to be anything more. And, I'm not going to sit there and take that crap. He's on our show. He's our guest. And he wants to come here and talk that crap, promote the greatness of Charlotte, talk down to East Carolina. I'm not going to put up with the crap. And, so be it. It is what it is. But I can't stand a smarmy little prick like that. I mean, if you're going to talk trash, then talk trash. That little sideways crap coming out your mouth, that gets under my skin more than anything.
Well, it's gonna be a lot of fun in October. I can't wait. We'll have to get him back on, and the two of y'all. I'll tell you what we'll do.
Do not get him back on this show. Do not. No, he is. I ban him from this show. That is coming from. I will not be on this show with him again. No, hell no. There's tons of other good people that represent UCF. I do not want him back on this show. That is the first time I've ever said I do not want a guest back on the show. No, he's a clown. Screw that guy. He doesn't deserve the press for us promoting his stuff. No. And look, you guys know what I got on me right now. For him to get me this fired up, anyway.
All right, we'll get out of here. We'll see how the Pirates do, and good luck to the Pirates. And that game is going to be at 6 o'clock. Take 2 bottles of water with you. Don't forget about that. You can take that in the stadium. And if you have anybody tell you no, then get a supervisor for sure. We'll get out of here. It's been a long show. Thanks to Bubba for all your hard work, my friend. The Inside Slant is a weekly college football preview. We do it every Thursday night, and you hear it right here on the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody. And as always, go Pirates.